The ship Harmony's Edge moved slowly through the dark space toward the Valian homeworld. Ambassador Tae-ho Kim stood at the large window in his cabin, watching the alien stars grow brighter. He was 52 years old, with gray hair and kind eyes that had seen many worlds. This would be his most important mission. Tae-ho had spent 30 years talking to alien races. He spoke 17 different alien languages and had made peace between enemies 6 times before. But the Valians were different. They were proud and angry, and they hated humans. Dr. So-ra-yoon knocked on his door. She was his helper and friend, a smart woman who studied alien life. She had short black hair and always carried a data pad with notes about different alien races. "Are you ready for tomorrow?" she asked, sitting in the chair across from his desk. Tae-ho nodded but looked worried. "The Valians think we are weak because we try to talk instead of fight. They do not understand that choosing peace takes more strength than choosing war." So-ra looked at her notes. "The Valians look like big spiders made of crystal. They are very strong and live for a long time. Their society has different levels. The Warcast Council makes all the important decisions. They only respect strength and honor." "What about their leader?" Tae-ho asked. "War Prince Thekvar. He is young but very dangerous. He believes humans are soft and stupid. He thinks we should not be allowed to travel in space that belongs to the Valians." Tae-ho had read all the reports. 3 human diplomats had tried to talk to the Valians before him. All 3 had failed. The Valians had sent them away with insults and threats. Some people on Earth wanted to give up trying. Others wanted to fight. But Tae-ho believed there was still hope for peace. The ship's captain, Won-sik Nam, called them to the bridge. Through the main screen, they could see Valios Prime. The planet was beautiful, but scary. It was covered in tall crystal towers that reached into the clouds. The towers glowed with strange colors that hurt human eyes to look at for too long. "Incoming message from the planet," the communications officer said. A voice spoke in the Valian language. It sounded like glass breaking and wind howling. Tae-ho listened carefully, and then translated for the others. "They will allow me to land, but I must come alone, except for one helper. They will not promise my safety." So-ra stepped forward. "I will come with you." "No," Tae-ho said firmly. "You must stay on the ship. If something happens to me, you need to tell Earth what the Valians are really like." "Ambassador, I have studied their culture for 5 years. You need me there." Tae-ho looked at his friend. So-ra was brave and smart, but she was also precious to him. He had never told her how much he cared about her. They had worked together for so long that she felt like family. "I will take Dr. Byung-ho Park from the cultural team," he decided. "You will monitor everything from the ship." So-ra was not happy, but she agreed. The next morning, Tae-ho put on his best diplomatic uniform. It was blue with gold symbols that meant peace in many alien languages. He carried gifts from Earth, music, art, and food that showed the best of human culture. Dr. Park was nervous as they took the small shuttle to the planet. He was young and had never met aliens before. His hands shook as he held his translation device. "Stay calm," Tae-ho told him. "Show respect, but do not show fear. The Valians can sense fear, and they hate it." They landed in a crystal plaza surrounded by enormous towers. Valian guards waited for them. The aliens were even more frightening in person. They stood 3 meters tall on 8 legs. Their bodies were made of what looked like living crystal that changed colors. Their eyes were like black diamonds, and they had no mouth that humans could see. The guards did not speak. They pointed with one of their sharp legs toward a tower. Taeho and Dr. Park followed them through halls filled with strange light and music that sounded like metal singing. They were brought to a great room where the war-cast council waited. 12 Valians sat on high crystal chairs. Their leader, War Prince Thekvar, was the largest. His crystal body was deep red like blood, and his eyes seemed to burn with inner fire. Thekvar spoke in perfect English, which surprised Taeho. So the mammals send another one to beg for mercy. "I come to talk about peace between our peoples," Taeho said, keeping his voice steady. He placed the gifts from Earth on the floor and bowed in the Valian way. "Peace?" Thekvar's laugh sounded like breaking glass. "Your species spreads through space like a disease. You build on worlds that belong to us. You think you can bargain with your superiors?" "We do not want to take anything from you," Taeho said. "We want to share space fairly. There are millions of worlds for both our peoples." For 3 hours, Taeho talked about borders and trade and respect. He offered to move human colonies away from Valian space. He promised to limit human expansion in certain directions. He spoke about the benefits of peace and friendship between different species. Some of the council members seemed interested. They asked questions about human technology and culture, but War Prince Thekvar remained cold and angry. "You offer us scraps from your table," Thekvar said finally. "You think we should be grateful for your kindness, but we do not need your friendship. We do not want your trade. We want you gone from our space forever." "That is not possible," Taeho said quietly. "Humans live on 100 worlds now. We cannot simply disappear, but we can live in peace if you will let us." The meeting ended badly. The council dismissed them without making any decisions. Taeho and Dr. Park were taken to small rooms in the tower to wait. That night, Taeho sent a message to the ship. Sora received it and smiled for the first time in days. "Progress is being made," Taeho said in the recording. "War Prince Thekvar is difficult, but some council members are willing to listen. I believe we can find peace. Tell Earth that their ambassador has not given up hope." Sora saved the message and went to sleep feeling better about the mission. She did not know it would be the last time she would ever hear Taeho's voice. 6 weeks passed without any word from Ambassador Taeho Kim. Dr. So-Ra Yoon waited at Luna Base near Earth, checking her messages every hour. The Harmony's Edge had returned to human space, but Taeho and Dr. Park had stayed behind for more talks with the Valians. Sora could not sleep well. She had a bad feeling in her stomach that grew worse each day. Other diplomats told her not to worry. They said alien negotiations always took a long time. But Sora knew Taeho better than anyone. He always sent messages, even short ones, to let people know he was safe. Captain Dongmin Park commanded the patrol ship Vigilant at the edge of human space. He was a careful man who followed all the rules. His ship watched for smugglers and pirates in the empty space between star systems. It was usually boring work. That morning started like any other. Captain Park drank his coffee and read reports from other patrol ships. Nothing interesting had happened for weeks. Then his communications officer, Lieutenant Yuna Seo, called him to the bridge. "Captain, we have a ship coming out of hyperspace," she said. "It is sending a message." "What kind of ship?" Park asked. "Valian design, sir. Small transport vessel." Captain Park felt surprised. Valian ships never came to human space. The two species had agreed years ago to stay away from each other's territory, except for diplomatic missions. "Put the message on screen," he ordered. The alien voice spoke in broken English. The words were cold and harsh. "Human vessel, we return your diplomat. We leave cargo at coordinates 4729. Do not follow, do not respond." The Valian ship immediately jumped back into hyperspace, leaving Captain Park and his crew staring at empty space. "Sir, should we report this to Earth?" Lieutenant CO asked. "First, we check the coordinates," Park said. His heart was beating fast. Something was very wrong. The Vigilant flew to the coordinates the Valians had given. There, floating in space, was a small cargo container. It was the kind used to transport medical supplies or scientific samples. The container had life support systems running. "There is something alive in there," the ship's doctor, Commander Mi-Young Lee, said after scanning the container. "But the readings are strange. I cannot tell what it is." Captain Park made a decision that would haunt him forever. Bring it aboard. Take it to the medical bay. Full quarantine procedures. They used the ship's mechanical arms to pull the container into the cargo hold. Then they moved it carefully to the medical section. Captain Park, Dr. Lee, and two security officers put on protective suits before opening the container. Dr. Lee opened the container's seal. Inside was a smaller medical pod, the kind used to keep injured people alive during transport. Through the clear top, they could see something that made them all step backward in horror. It was Ambassador Tae-ho Kim, but not the way they remembered him. The Valians had cut off his arms and legs. They had removed his eyes. They had done other terrible things that Dr. Lee could not describe out loud. But they had kept him alive through all of it. The medical equipment showed his heart was still beating. His brain was still working. Captain Park threw up inside his helmet. The security officers ran from the room. Only Dr. Lee stayed, her medical training keeping her focused even though she was crying. Attached to the pod was a small device that projected a hologram when activated. The image showed War Prince Thekvar, his crystal body glowing bright red with anger. "Humans," the Valian leader said in perfect English. "This is what we do to those who presume to bargain with their superiors. Your ambassador thought he could talk to us as equals. He was wrong. His companion tried to help him escape. They are both gone now. Let this be a lesson to your entire species. We do not want your friendship. We do not want your trade. We want you to disappear from our space forever. If you send another diplomat, we will send them back the same way." The hologram faded. Dr. Lee worked desperately to help Tae-ho, but there was nothing she could do. His body was too damaged. He died 2 hours later, finally free from his pain. Captain Park sent an emergency message to Earth Fleet Command. Then he called Luna Base to speak with Dr. Sora Yoon. Sora was in her office when the call came through. She saw Captain Park's face on her screen and knew immediately that something terrible had happened. "Dr. Yoon," he said softly. "I am sorry. Ambassador Kim is dead." Sora felt the world spin around her. "How? What happened? Where is his body?" Captain Park told her everything. Sora listened without speaking, her face becoming whiter with each word. When he finished, she sat in silence for a long time. "Dr. Yoon, are you still there?" "Yes," she whispered. "I want to see him." "Ma'am, I do not think—" "I want to see what they did to him," Sora said, her voice getting stronger. "Send me the medical records. Send me everything." The files arrived. An hour later. Sora looked at the images and reports in her office with the door locked. She had studied alien biology for 15 years, but she had never seen cruelty like this. The Valians had not just killed Tae-ho, they had tortured him slowly, keeping him alive to suffer as long as possible. Sora had loved Tae-ho, though she had never told him. He was kind and wise, and believed that all thinking beings could live together in peace. The Valians had destroyed that belief along with his body. The news spread across human space faster than any government could control it. Videos of War Prince Thekvar's message appeared on every news network. Pictures of what the Valians had done to Ambassador Kim were shared billions of times. Humans had lived in peace for over a century. They had fought small wars with pirates and rebels, but nothing like the old wars between nations on Earth. Most people had never seen real violence. The sight of what aliens had done to their diplomat shocked them to their core. Protests started on every human world. People gathered in the streets demanding action. Even the strongest peace activists called for justice. The Galactic Peace Movement, which had millions of members, dissolved overnight as its leaders resigned in shame. Admiral Jinwoo Lee had been Tae-ho's friend since they were young men. They had served together in the Earth Defense Force before. Tae-ho became a diplomat. Jinwoo was now the highest-ranking military officer in human space. He stood before the United Earth Council 3 days after Tae-ho's death. The council chamber was full of angry representatives from every human world. Jinwoo was a tall man with gray hair and scars from old battles. He had always been calm and controlled, but today his eyes burned with quiet fury. "Counselors," he said in a voice that carried to every corner of the room. "For 300 years, humanity has chosen peace over war. We have talked instead of fighting. We have built instead of destroying. We chose this path because we believed it was right." The room was completely silent. Ambassador Kim died believing in that choice. He went to the Valians in peace, offering friendship and cooperation. They answered by torturing him to death and sending back his broken body as a message. Jinwoo paused and looked at each council member. "The Valians have shown us that they understand only one language. It is time. We spoke it fluently. I am asking this council to authorize total war against the Valian Empire." The vote was unanimous. The day after the United Earth Council voted for war, Admiral Jinwoo Lee activated Protocol 7. It was a plan that had existed for 200 years, but had never been used. Protocol 7 meant total war. Every resource, every factory, every human world working together for one purpose. Admiral Lee stood in the command center of Luna Base, watching screens that showed activity across human space. Within hours of his order, shipyards that had been building peaceful trading vessels stopped their work. Instead, they began making warships. The humans had always been good at building things. They had colonized 100 worlds in just 3 centuries. They had built cities under alien seas and space stations around burning stars. Now all that building skill turned toward making instruments of war. Commander Sujin Han walked through the shipyard at Mars Station, watching workers finish the largest warship ever built by humans. It had been called the New Horizon when construction started 2 years ago. Now it was being renamed the Tae-ho's Vengeance. Sujin was 35 years old and had commanded 3 different ships in the Earth Defense Force. She was small and quiet, but her crew trusted her completely. She had never lost a ship or failed a mission. "How long until the weapons are ready?" she asked Chief Engineer Tae-sung Ko. "2 more weeks for the main guns," he replied. But Admiral Lee wants to install something new. They call it the Glassmaker. Sujin had read about the Glassmaker in classified reports. It was a weapon that could turn rock and metal into glass-like crystal. A planet hit by the Glassmaker would become a dead ball of crystal floating in space. "Are we really going to use something like that?" she asked. Chief Ko looked uncomfortable. "The Admiral says we will carry it, but only use it if the Valians force us to. He wants them to know we can destroy their worlds if they do not surrender." At the Luna Research Center, Dr. Sora Yoon worked in a laboratory that had been sealed off from the rest of the building. She wore a full protective suit as she studied samples of Valian tissue that had been collected years ago during the first diplomatic contact. Sora was no longer the same person who had worked with Tae-ho, the kind woman who had loved studying. Alien life was gone. In her place was someone cold and focused, driven by anger and grief. She now headed the new Xenobiological Warfare Division. "Have you found their weakness?" asked Dr. Woo Jin Lim, her assistant. He was a young scientist who had volunteered for the project after seeing what the Valians did to Ambassador Kim. "Yes," Sora said, looking at data on her screen. "Their crystal nervous system is very sensitive to certain chemicals. I can create a weapon that will cause them terrible pain without killing them immediately." "Why not just kill them?" Sora's eyes were cold as ice. "Because they kept Tae-ho alive while they tortured him. They need to understand what that feels like." General Hyun-Soo Cho stood on a training field where 50,000 human soldiers practiced fighting. The general was 60 years old and had fought in the Proxima Rebellion 20 years ago. He had never seen anything like what was happening now. Humans from every world had volunteered to fight. Farmers, teachers, doctors, engineers, they all wanted to join the military. In 6 months, over 2 billion people had signed up for military service. It was the largest army in galactic history. "Sir," said Colonel Yoon-ji Kim, his aide, "the volunteers keep coming. We cannot train them all fast enough." "We will train who we can and use the rest for support," the general replied. "The important thing is that every human wants to fight. The Valians think we are weak because we prefer peace. They will learn the difference between choosing peace and being unable to fight." The general watched his soldiers practice with new weapons designed specifically for fighting Valians. The aliens were strong and had tough crystal skin, so humans had created guns that fired explosive rounds and energy weapons that could crack crystal. But the most important weapon was something the Valians would never expect: human anger. Every soldier had seen the images of what happened to Ambassador Kim. They fought with a fury that surprised even their trainers. At the Titan Weapons Laboratory, Dr. Chang-Ho Ryu worked on the secret projects that would give humans an advantage. In space battles, he was creating new types of missiles and energy weapons that could penetrate Valian ship armor. "The plasma torpedoes are ready," he told Admiral Lee during a video call. "Each one can destroy a Valian cruiser with a single hit. We have built 10,000 of them." "What about the kinetic bombardment system?" the Admiral asked. "Also ready. We can drop metal rods from orbit that hit with the force of nuclear weapons. The Valians will not be able to defend their planets from them." While humans prepared for war, intelligence officers watched Valian space through spy satellites and secret listening posts. The aliens seemed unaware of how angry they had made humanity. Their leaders boasted about killing Ambassador Kim and talked about driving humans out of space completely. War Prince Thekvar appeared on Valian communication networks, speaking to his people about the coming war with humans. He called them soft mammals and cowardly traitors who would run away at the first sign of real fighting. They cannot even protect their own diplomat, he laughed during one broadcast. How can they hope to fight the mighty Valian Empire? We will crush them like insects and take their worlds for ourselves. Other alien species watched the preparations with interest and fear. The Zalani Republic offered to help humans with weapons and supplies. The Morthak Trade Union closed their borders and declared neutrality. Everyone in the galaxy knew that something big was about to happen. Admiral Lee received reports from across human space every day. Factory production was at maximum levels. Military training was proceeding faster than anyone had thought possible. New weapons were being tested and deployed. But the most important change was in the human people themselves. They had been a peaceful species for centuries, focused on exploration and trade. Now they were united by anger and the desire for justice. Every human understood that if they did not fight back, other aliens would think they could treat humanity the same way the Valians had. Dr. So-Ra Yoon finished her biological weapons and sent them to military factories for mass production. The weapons would not kill Valians immediately, but would cause pain so terrible that enemy soldiers would be unable to fight. She felt no guilt about creating such things. The Valians had started this type of warfare when they tortured Taeho. Commander Sujin Han took the Taeho's vengeance on its first test flight. The massive ship performed perfectly, its new weapon systems working exactly as designed. Her crew was eager to use the ship against the aliens who had killed their ambassador. General Cho finished training the first wave of volunteer soldiers. They were not professional military like the old Earth Defense Force, but they were motivated, in a way that professional soldiers rarely were. Each one was fighting for justice and revenge. Admiral Lee stood in his command center and looked at the reports showing human military strength. In less than a year, humanity had built the largest and most powerful military force in galactic history. They had weapons the Valians had never seen, and soldiers who wanted to fight more than anything else. The Admiral opened a communication channel to all human military units across space. Millions of soldiers, sailors, and pilots listened. To his words, "In 2 weeks we begin Operation Righteous Fury," he announced. "We will show the Valians and the entire galaxy what happens when someone hurts a human diplomat." Ambassador Kim died believing in peace, but his death has given us the unity we need to protect ourselves and our future. He paused and looked directly into the camera. The Valians think they know what war is. They are about to learn what war looks like when humans decide to fight. The human fleet appeared at the edge of Valian space without warning. Admiral Jin-Woo Lee commanded 10,000 warships, the largest military force in galactic history. The ships stretched across space like a metal ocean, their weapons pointed toward the Valian Empire. The Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Earth's Fury, and looked at the tactical display showing enemy positions. The Valians had built defensive stations around their border worlds, expecting humans to attack eventually, but they had not expected an attack this large or this soon. "Open a communication channel to the Valian homeworld," Admiral Lee ordered. The message went out across space at light speed. Every Valian world would receive it within hours. The Admiral's words were simple and cold. "War Prince Thekvar, you sent back our ambassador in pieces. We will return the favor. This is Admiral Jin-Woo Lee of the human fleet. You have 1 hour to surrender all military forces and turn over those responsible for Ambassador Kim's death. If you refuse, we will show you what humans do when you hurt our people." The response came back from Valios Prime 30 minutes later. War Prince Thekvar appeared on screen, his crystal body glowing red with anger. "Pathetic mammals," he said. "You think your ships frighten us? We have fought wars for 1,000 years while you were still living in caves. Return to your homes before we destroy you all." Admiral Lee closed the communication channel and turned to his officers. "Begin Operation Righteous Fury. Show them no mercy for military targets, but protect all civilians. We are not like them." The first battle happened at Keth Mori Station, a massive Valian military base that guarded the entrance to their space. The base was supposed to be impossible to attack. It had shields that could stop any weapon and enough firepower to destroy 100 ships. The Valians expected humans to attack like other alien species, with honor and formal challenges and rules of war. Instead, Commander Sujin Han's dreadnought Taeho's Vengeance led a coordinated assault that came from 12 different directions at once. Human ships attacked in swarms like angry bees protecting their hive. They used tactics no other species had ever developed. Some ships attacked the station's weapons while others hit its shields. A third group targeted the power generators, while a fourth attacked the command center. The Valian defenders tried to respond, but they could not adapt fast enough. Their crystal bodies moved slowly compared to humans, and their military training focused on individual combat rather than group tactics. Commander Han's ship fired its main weapon, a plasma cannon that had been built specifically to crack crystal armor. The blast tore through the station's defenses like they were made of paper. In 20 minutes, Keth Mori Station was destroyed. The human fleet lost only 12 ships. Over 3,000 Valians died. The remaining defenders surrendered, shocked by how quickly they had been defeated. On the ground, General Hyun-Soo Cho led human soldiers in the invasion of Valian colony worlds. The general had studied Valian military tactics and knew their weaknesses. The aliens were strong fighters one-on-one, but they had never faced an enemy that used psychological warfare. Before attacking each world, human ships broadcast recordings of War Prince Thekvar boasting about torturing Ambassador Kim. They showed pictures of what the Valians had done to the human diplomat. Many Valian civilians were horrified when they learned the truth about their leaders. Dr. Sora Yoon's biological weapons were deployed against Valian military bases. The weapons did not kill immediately, but they attacked the aliens' crystal nervous systems. Valian soldiers found themselves in terrible pain, unable to move or fight. They kept him alive while they cut him apart, Dr. Yoon said coldly when other scientists questioned her methods. Now they understand what Tai-Ho felt. The weapons were designed to affect only Valians, leaving other species unharmed. Human soldiers could walk through areas where Valian defenders lay helpless, rescuing civilians and capturing equipment. Space battles raged across the Valian Empire as Admiral Lee's fleets pushed deeper into enemy territory. Human ships used new tactics that confused and frightened the Valians. They attacked at night when Valians could not see well. They used electronic warfare to jam enemy communications. They targeted supply lines and refugee ships carrying Valian military families. But the humans always followed strict rules. They never harmed civilians. They provided medical care to wounded enemies. They allowed Valian refugees to evacuate to neutral worlds. This confused the Valians more than any weapon. "Why do they help our people while killing our soldiers?" asked Valian General Korathak after his fleet was defeated at the Battle of 7 Moons. His aide had no answer. "Perhaps they are trying to make us weak by showing false kindness." "No," the general said quietly. "I think they are showing us what honor really means." Commander Han's ship became famous throughout the war. The Taiho's vengeance won every battle it fought, leading human fleets to victory after victory. Han's tactics were studied by military officers across human space and copied by other commanders. But the ship's crew never forgot why they were fighting. In the ship's main corridor was a picture of Ambassador Kim taken before his final mission. Under it were the words, "Never again," in 17 different languages. General Cho's ground forces captured Valian worlds with unprecedented speed. His soldiers fought with personal investment that professional armies rarely showed. Many had known Ambassador Kim personally or had met him during his diplomatic missions. The general was careful to protect Valian civilians, but his treatment of enemy soldiers was harsh. Any Valian military officer who had supported War Prince Tekvar was arrested and held for trial. Any soldier who had participated in torturing prisoners was executed immediately. "We are not barbarians like them," General Cho told his officers. "But justice demands that some crimes be punished without mercy." As human forces advanced, they discovered evidence of other atrocities. The Valians had tortured and killed diplomats, from other species too. They had destroyed peaceful trading ships and enslaved the crews. They had committed war crimes across the galaxy for decades. Dr. Yoon expanded her biological weapons program when she learned about these other crimes. She created new agents that could target specific Valian military units based on their genetic markers. The weapons became more precise and more terrible. Within 18 months, the Valian Empire had lost 40% of its territory. Worlds that had been Valian for thousands of years were now under human control. The crystal towers that had been symbols of Valian power lay broken and dark. War Prince Tekvar tried to rally his people with speeches about Valian superiority and honor. But more and more Valians began to question their leaders. They saw human soldiers helping Valian civilians, while Valian officers fled from battle. They heard recordings of Tekvar laughing about torturing a peaceful diplomat. Admiral Lee received intelligence reports showing that Valian military morale was collapsing. Entire fleets were surrendering without fighting. Some Valian worlds were asking for human protection from their own government. "They are beginning to understand," the Admiral told his staff during a strategy meeting. "We have shown them the difference between strength and cruelty, between honor and brutality." The human war machine continued to advance toward the Valian homeworld. Every victory brought them closer to ending the war and getting justice for Ambassador Kim. But the cost was high. Hundreds of thousands of humans had died in the fighting, and millions more were wounded. Commander Han stood in her ship's medical bay visiting wounded crew members. A young engineer named Seung-ho Park had lost his arm in the Battle of the Crystal Nebula. "Was it worth it, Commander?" he asked. "All this fighting and dying?" Han looked at the picture of Ambassador Kim on the wall. "When evil goes unpunished, it grows stronger." Taeho died believing in peace, but his death taught us that sometimes peace can only be protected through war. The final assault on Valios Prime was being planned. Soon, War Prince Tekvar would face justice for his crimes. The Valian Empire that had seemed so powerful was crumbling under the weight of human anger and determination. For the first time in their history, the proud Valians were facing complete defeat. War Prince Tekvar stood in his crystal palace on Valios Prime, watching human ships surround his homeworld. Through the great windows, he could see thousands of enemy vessels blocking out the stars. In 2 years of war, the mighty Valian Empire had been reduced to a few dozen worlds. The War Prince had finally begun to understand the magnitude of his mistake. The humans had not just defeated Valian military forces. They had systematically destroyed an empire that had taken 3,000 years to build. Worse, They had done it while following their own strict moral codes, proving their superiority in every way that mattered to Valian culture. "My lord," said General Vextar, his chief military advisor, "our remaining fleets cannot stop them. The humans have weapons we have never seen before. Their soldiers fight like demons, but they protect our civilians better than we do." Thekvar's crystal body flickered between red and black, showing his anger and fear. "How is this possible? They are just mammals. Soft, weak creatures who should bow before us." "Perhaps," said an old voice from behind them. "That was our first mistake." Thekvar turned to see Elder Silthara, the oldest member of the Valian Council. She had opposed the torture of Ambassador Kim, but had been ignored by the younger warriors. "You have something to say, old one?" Thekvar asked. "I have lived for 800 years, Silthara replied. "I have seen many species rise and fall. The humans were never weak. They chose peace because they were strong enough to choose. When you took that choice away, you awakened something terrible." Admiral Jinwoo Lee stood on the bridge of his flagship as it approached Valios Prime. The planet was beautiful, even in war, its crystal cities glowing like jewels against the dark surface. But the Admiral felt no joy in seeing it. Too many good people had died to reach this moment. "Incoming transmission from the planet," reported Communications Officer In-Suk Choi. A new voice spoke from Valios Prime. It was not War Prince Thekvar, but Elder Silthara. "Admiral Lee, I am Elder Silthara of the Valian Council. I wish to discuss surrender terms." Admiral Lee was surprised, but cautious. "Where is War Prince Thekvar?" "The War Prince no longer speaks for our people. We have seen the evidence of his crimes against your ambassador and others. We wish to end this war before more innocent blood is shed." "I will meet with you," Admiral Lee said. "But I want Thekvar and all those responsible for Ambassador Kim's death turned over for trial." "It will be done," the elder promised. Dr. Sora Yoon watched the surrender negotiations from Luna Base. She had spent 2 years creating weapons of terrible precision, driven by grief and anger. Now that the war was ending, she felt empty inside. Her assistant, Dr. Lim, found her sitting alone in her laboratory, staring at pictures of Ambassador Kim. "It is over," he said gently. "We have won." "Have we?" Sora asked. "Taeho is still dead. All the Valians we killed are still dead. What have we really accomplished?" "We showed the galaxy that humans will not accept cruelty," Dr. Lim replied. "No alien species will ever again think they can hurt us without consequences." 3 days later, Admiral Lee landed on Valios Prime with a small diplomatic team. The Crystal City was quiet, its normal glow dimmed by the shadow of defeat. Valian, civilians watched the humans with fear and curiosity. Elder Silthara met them at the palace. She was ancient even by Valian standards, her crystal body worn smooth by centuries of life. But her mind was sharp and clear. "Admiral," she said in perfect English, "I am sorry for what was done to your friend. Many of us opposed it, but we were overruled by the war caste." "Where is Thekvar?" Admiral Lee asked. "In custody. The people turned against him when they learned the truth about Ambassador Kim's death. He will face justice as you demand." The trial of War Prince Thekvar took place on a neutral space station with judges from 12 different species. The evidence was overwhelming. Not only had Thekvar ordered Ambassador Kim's torture, but he had personally participated in it. Dr. Sora Yoon testified about the medical evidence. Her voice was calm and professional as she described the deliberate cruelty involved in keeping the ambassador alive during his torture. When she finished, Thekvar spoke for the first time during the trial. "I am not sorry," he said, his crystal body glowing with defiant red light. "Humans needed to learn their place. I would do it again." The judges found him guilty of war crimes and crimes against sentience. He was sentenced to life imprisonment on a prison world where he would spend his remaining centuries thinking about his mistakes. Commander Sujin Han attended the memorial service for Ambassador Kim on Earth. The ceremony was held in the Great Plaza where humans had first announced their expansion to the stars. Representatives from dozens of alien species came to pay their respects, including many Valians. A statue of Ambassador Kim was unveiled, showing him holding documents of peace in one hand and reaching out in friendship with the other. The inscription read, "He died believing in peace, but his sacrifice taught us that peace must sometimes be protected by war." Elder Silthara approached Han after the ceremony. "Commander, I wanted to thank you personally. Your conduct during the war showed us what true honor means. You could have destroyed our worlds, but you chose to protect our innocent people instead." "We are not like Thekvar," Han replied. "We fight only when we must, and only against those who deserve it." General Han Su-cho oversaw the withdrawal of human forces from most Valian worlds. The occupation had been brief but effective. Human engineers had helped rebuild damaged cities. Human doctors had treated wounded Valians. Human teachers had shared knowledge about peaceful conflict resolution. "Why are you helping us?" asked a young Valian officer who had fought against human forces. "Because the war is over," General Cho explained. "Our enemy was your government, not your people. Now that you have a new government, we can be friends." The war officially ended with the signing of the Treaty of Terra Nova. The new Valian government, led by Elder Silthara and other moderates, agreed to major reforms. They would abolish the war caste system that had made Thekvar powerful. They would respect the rights of other species. They would pay compensation to the families of those they had harmed. Admiral Lee signed the treaty on behalf of humanity, but he took no joy in the ceremony. The cost had been too high. Dr. So-Ra-Yoon stood beside him as the documents were signed. She had returned to studying peaceful alien life, trying to heal the part of herself that the war had damaged. "Do you think Taeho would approve of what we did?" she asked the Admiral quietly. "I think he would understand," Lee replied. "He believed in peace, but he also believed in justice. Sometimes they are the same thing." 1 year after the war ended, Dr. Yoon received a message from Elder Silthara. The Valian government wanted to establish a new diplomatic academy, teaching peaceful negotiation instead of conquest. They wanted to name it the Kim Tae-ho Institute for Interspecies Understanding. Sora smiled for the first time in 3 years. Perhaps something good could come from all the pain after all. The war had changed humanity's place in the galaxy forever. They were no longer seen as just peaceful traders and diplomats. They were now recognized as the galaxy's ultimate arbiters of justice. Feared by tyrants, respected by the oppressed, and never again underestimated. Admiral Lee kept a picture of Ambassador Kim in his office. Under it was a sign with the lesson that the war had taught the galaxy. Humans prefer peace, but when peace becomes impossible, they remember why other species ask them to mediate wars instead of fighting them. We do not fight often, but when we do, we fight to win. The Valian War was over, but its memory would last forever. Throughout the galaxy, the story was told of what happened when someone hurt a human diplomat. It became a warning that no species would ever forget. And in the peaceful years that followed, when disputes arose between alien races, they always asked the same question: should we call the humans to help us talk? Because everyone knew that if talking failed, the humans would find another way to solve the problem, and no one wanted to learn what that way looked like.